This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has urged global leaders to unite in the face of the current security climate and development crises that affect the world's stability. And the Minister of Religious Affairs and Endowments, Youssef Belmehdi, has praised the role of imams in raising awareness, guiding society and fighting extremism. And as the Palestinian authorities denounce the increase in Israeli violence in the West Bank, more people have been killed in the continued Israeli bombardments against the Gaza Strip. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has urged global leaders to unite in the face of the current security, climate and development crises that affect the world's stability. The details with Mariam Barshi.
During the virtual meeting of the Global Call for the Summit of the Future, President Tebboune expressed Algeria's firm support for the United Nations and called for collective action through a proposed pact for the future. He said the Summit of the Future is not just a random event, but a historic turning point and a renewal of a collective commitment to the principles that have long been enshrined in the UN Charter.
إن قمة المستقبل التي نحن بصدد التحضير لها لا ينبغي أن تكون مجرد حدث عاد أو مناسبة عابرة، بل على العكس من ذلك تماما. فإن هذا الموعد ينبغي توظيفه وتثمينه أولا كمحطة فارقة لتجديد التزامنا الجماعي بالمبادئ والقيم المكرسة في الميثاق الأممي، تلك المبادئ والقيم التي وضعت من أجل صون أمننا الجماعي ونسج ترابط منصف بين بلداننا وإعلاء مصالحنا المشتركة.
President Tebboune said the upcoming discussions are a rare and crucial opportunity to reshape the global landscape and address the missed opportunities of the past and to lay the foundation for a future characterized by peace, stability and shared prosperity. President Tebboune also condemned the systemic marginalization of African nations, calling for an overhaul of the international order to reflect Africa's rightful role in shaping global decisions. He stressed that for too long Africa has been marginalized and silenced in international bodies, emphasizing the need to rectify centuries of exploitation, colonial domination and external interference that continue to haunt the continent.
فرصة متجددة لاستدراك ما فاتنا من مساع هادفة لبلورة حلول سلمية للأزمات والصراعات التي تثقل كاهل المجموعة الدولية. ثالثا وأخيرا كركيزة صلبة لاستشراف آفاق مستقبل أفضل في ظل منظومة دولية متوازنة وعادلة ومنظومة تنهي التهميش الذي طال أمده بحق الدول الإفريقية ومنظومة تستجيب لاستغاثة الشعوب المضطهدة وتمحي آخر آفات من آفات العقود الغابرة الاحتلال والاستعمار.
He then urged the world leaders to seize such an opportunity to make meaningful change, stating that it is the world power's duty to ensure that the summit's outcomes lead to concrete actions that guarantee a future where peace, justice and equality prevail.
أدعو قادة العالم إلى الانضمام إلى هذا المسعى النبيل وإلى حشد جهودنا بغية ترجمة ما ستجتمع عليه قيمنا من مخرجات إلى نتائج فعلية تحفظ مصالح الأجيال القادمة والحالية.
Let's note that the President's speech came ahead of the Summit of the Future scheduled for the 22nd and 23rd of September 2024.
And the UN Special Envoy on Financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, Mahmoud Mahieddine, has said that sustainable development cannot be achieved unless cooperation is deepened at the regional and international levels, mainly in the Arab region, which is facing major challenges, notably conflicts and humanitarian crises. He was quoted by the UN Information Center as saying that the summit meeting of the Future Global Call, slated for September 22nd, will try and find solutions solutions to such challenges. In this connection, the UN officials stressed that the forthcoming summit offered a genuine opportunity to reconsider the international mechanisms and to revive those initiatives related to sustainable development and international security. He went on to say that the two-day meeting will represent a serious attempt, probably one of the last ones, to try and save the world system and those institutions entrusted with ensuring peace and promoting development. Muslim countries, including Algeria, are celebrating today, September 15th, corresponding to 12 Rabi al-Awwal, the Al-Mawlid al-Nabawi al-Sharif, or the birthday of Prophet Muhammad, God's peace and blessings be upon him. Prophet Muhammad's birthday, also known as Mawlid, is commemorated in Rabi al-Awwal, the third month of the Islamic calendar. You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and Prime Minister Nadia Al-Arbawi has chaired a ceremony on the occasion of the celebration of Mawlid al-Nabawi al-Sharif in Jami al-Jazair, or the Algiers Grand Mosque, in his capacity as representative of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune. The details with my colleague Majid Mila, who is with me in the studio. Hi, Majid.
Hi, Asia. Indeed, accompanied by the Minister of the Religious Affairs and Endowments, Youssef Belmehdi, and the Interior Minister, Brahim Arad, the Prime Minister, performed the Maghrib prayer alongside imams, sheikhs of zawiyas and reciters of the Holy Quran. In his sermon, this rector of the Grand Mosque, Muhammad Mamoun al-Qasimi al-Husseini, spoke about the life of the Prophet and the symbolism of this celebration, which is being held for the first time in his important civilizational building. He also recalled that the Mawlid al-Nabawi festival is one of the blessed occasions during which Muslims recall the life of the Prophet, while emphasizing the human values that characterize the Muslim religion. The celebration also included the collective reading of the Holy Quran and a religious psalm, as well as an award ceremony for the Holy Quran reciters as part of the competition of the President of the Republic Quran reciting. Back to you, Asia.
Thank you, Majid. And the Minister of Religious Affairs and Endowments, Youssef Belmehdi, has praised the role of imams in raising awareness, guiding society, spreading intellectual security, fighting extremism, and preserving the national religious reference. This came during the official celebration of the National Imam Day in its third edition, held under the slogan, "The Imam, from fight and liberation to construction and edification."
Our imams play today an important role in terms of raising awareness, enlightening minds and preserving ideas, fighting extremism, preserving the religious reference and contributing to the purification of hearts, the resolution of disputes and the strengthening of social ties. Our imams also play a major role in supporting the oppressed and defending the just causes, particularly the Palestinian cause. We thank our imams for their good deeds. The Minister of Religious Affairs said the imams who participated in the Liberation War play today an important role within society through their actions to eliminate hatred among people, resolve disputes, strengthen social ties, defend the sacred values of the Islamic nation, and support just causes, notably the Palestinian cause. And as the Palestinian authorities denounce the increase in Israeli violence in the West Bank, more people have been killed in the continued Israeli bombardments against the Gaza Strip. Palestinian sources said at least 18 people were killed and several others wounded in the Israeli airstrikes that targeted the central area of Nusayrat and Rafah in the southern part of the territory. This came as the head of the Palestinian National Council warned against the dangerous schemes of the Jewish settlers aimed at dealing a blow to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and to alter its status. His warning came in response to calls launched by extremist groups to set the holy place ablaze. You still listen to Radio Algeria International and more news about the Middle East with Majid Mila. Yeah, thank you, Asia. Indeed, now in Jordan, King Abdullah II of Jordan has entrusted the head of his office, Jafar Hassan, with forming a new government following the resignation of the outgoing Prime Minister in the wake of the legislative elections held on September 10th. The newly appointed Prime Minister and former Minister of Planning, aged 56, replaced Bishar Khassawan, who led the government since October 2020.
2020. Let's recall that the Islamic Action Front main opposition party took the lead in the legislative elections, capturing 31 out of the 138 seats at stake in Parliament. Back to you, Asia.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and participants to the Media Summit meeting of the member countries of the BRICS held in Moscow have called for a fair and equitable multipolar world order that respects international law, stressing the imperative of respecting the sovereignty of states.
In their final communique issued at the end of the two-day meeting, the participants stressed the importance of building a multipolar world order and insisted on the imperative of respecting the non-interference in the country's internal affairs. The document highlighted the role of the media in safeguarding and strengthening international dialogue and promoting exchanges and interaction between the respective media as part of the framework of the BRICS and BRICS Plus mechanisms. The participants reaffirmed their attachment to the principles of neutrality and factual journalism, while calling for coordinated efforts to combat disinformation. In this respect, they stressed the importance for the media of integrating and adapting to modern technologies and defining ethical standards and criteria in the use of artificial intelligence. Some 200 heads of media institutions, including the head of the Algerian Press Service, APS, as well as international bodies and specialists representing 45 countries, attended the event held at the World Trade Center in Moscow. The event, which was organized by the news agency TASS, coincided with the 120th anniversary of its creation. During the meeting, several panels and round tables were held, notably on the role of the media in the member countries of the BRICS in strengthening stability and cooperation in a multipolar world, and on how the media would deal with the technological transition towards a new world. The meeting also focused on how the media could face up to the new challenges, notably the use of artificial intelligence.
The President of Mauritania, Mohamed Ould Cheikh Al Ghazouani, and acting Chairman of the African Union and the Chairman of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mohamed, have urged the Union's member states to intensify the awareness and vaccination campaigns in light of the increasing spread of the monkeypox epidemic in Africa. The details with Majid Mila.
In a joint statement published by the Mauritanian press agency, Al Ghazouani and Faki called on the international community to step up efforts to ensure the success and effectiveness of the Continental Readiness and Response Plan for the Mpox. The chairman said that they are seriously following the evolution of the Mpox epidemic on the continent, as well as the detailed reports transmitted by the African Center for the Disease Control and Prevention on the evolution of the epidemic and the efforts deployed to deal with it. The joint statement expressed deep concern about the impact of the epidemic on two vulnerable groups, the children and women, as the toll of cases has reached 26,544, including 5,732 confirmed cases and 724 deaths linked to the epidemic.
Still in Africa, and at least 40 civilians were killed in an attack carried out by the Rapid Support paramilitary forces on a village in central Sudan. Several corpses remained exposed in the village as the RSF prevented displaced villagers from returning to bury the deceased. The committee called on civil society organizations to put pressure on the RSF to allow residents to enter the village to bury their loved ones. The RSF have not yet commented on the attack. Meanwhile, the International Organization for Migration has announced that flooding has displaced in 1 week, bringing the total number of people displaced in the country by torrents and rains to more than 178,000 since last June. The international organization reported that 119 incidents of heavy rain, torrential rains and flooding were reported between the 1st of June and the 13th of September. The UN agency explained that these rains caused a displacement of 178,460 people from localities in 15 states of Sudan. And the typhoon Bebinka has hit Shanghai with violent winds and torrential rains. Mariam Bershi has the details.
The city authorities said that the motorways were closed, flights were cancelled and the coastal residents evacuated. Bebinka is the most powerful typhoon hitting Shanghai in the last 75 years. On Sunday, China's National Flood and Drought Control Center activated a Level 4 emergency response for the eastern province of Anhui and raised the response in Shanghai and Zhejiang to Level 3. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, volunteers provided aid to the victims in flooded areas following the passage of Typhoon Yagi, which, according to a new count, left 281 people dead, 67 others missing, and more than 320,000 displaced. These figures are still provisional as information is fragmentary due to damaged roads and bridges, as well as telephone and internet cuts. According to official figures, the floods and landslides that followed the passage of Yagi, which hit the region last weekend, killed more than 400 people, mainly in Myanmar and Vietnam, but also in Laos and Thailand. Thailand's meteorological office has warned of further heavy rain in the provinces along the Mekong River. Vietnam's Minister of Planning and Investment, Nguyen Chi Dong, stressed during a government meeting that Typhoon Yagi, which hit northern Vietnam at the beginning of September, had caused damage of more than $1.63 billion. The minister said that Typhoon Yagi was the most powerful typhoon to hit Vietnam in 30 years, as the ensuing rain and flooding affected 26 provinces and municipalities, which account for 41% of the country's GDP and are home to 40% of Vietnam's population. In the north of the country, the typhoon and the resulting floods destroyed and flooded 257,000 buildings and more than 1,300 schools and damaged hundreds of dams, dikes and numerous other infrastructures. Some 262,000 hectares of rice fields and other agricultural crops were flooded and washed away, and more than 2.3 million head of livestock and poultry died. In Central and Eastern Europe, Storm Boris is devastating the region with torrential rain, heavy floods and thousands of evacuation, and the death toll has risen to at least 8, with several more missing. Romania has paid the heaviest price, but all the countries in the region have been severely hit, from Poland to Slovakia. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, expressed her solidarity with all those affected by the devastating floods and declared that the EU was ready to offer its support.
You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and to the U.S. now. The FBI has announced that it is investigating the latest alleged assassination attempt carried in Florida targeting candidate Donald Trump, who is safe and unharmed after a suspect was arrested. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris said they were relieved that their opponent was safe. According to a statement from the White House, the president and his vice president are kept regularly informed by their teams. The Kremlin, for its part, felt that the latest alleged assassination attempt on Donald Trump was a sign of an intensification of electoral campaign for the presidential election in November. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian president condemned the political violence, stressing that it has no place anywhere in the world. Let's recall that on July 13th, the former president was wounded in the ear by gunfire that killed one person and wounded two others at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania in the northeast of the country. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International and 2:48 minutes Algeria's time. And now the headlines. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has urged global leaders to unite in the face of the current security climate and development crises that affect the world's stability.
It's time for the news.
The Minister of Religious Affairs and Endowments, Youssef Belmehdi, has praised the role of imams in raising awareness, guiding society, spreading intellectual security, and fighting extremism. And as the Palestinian authorities announced the increase in Israeli violence in the West Bank, more people have been killed in the continued Israeli bombardments against the Gaza Strip. That's it, dear listeners, for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a program devoted to Al-Mawlid al-Nabawi al-Sharif. The program is compiled and presented by Saeed Bouazi.
Prophet Muhammad, God's peace and blessings be upon him, was born in the year 570 in the city of Mecca, in the Arabian Peninsula, part of modern Saudi Arabia. As his father had died shortly after marriage, his grandfather Abdul Muttalib became his guardian. Abdul Muttalib was the respected head of the clan of Hashim and the tribe of Quraysh, to which his clan belonged. With the Quraysh being the biggest and most influential tribe in Mecca, Abdul Muttalib was seen as the master of all of Mecca. The Quraysh had a special status in Mecca because they used to be in charge of the sacred Kaaba. The Holy Quran tells us that this holy edifice was built by Prophets Abraham and his son Ismail. The Prophet was only about 5 to 6 years old when he lost his mother. Orphan Muhammad then lost his grandfather and custodian Abdul Muttalib at the age of 8. Now one of Abdul Muttalib's sons, Abu Talib, became the guardian of his orphan nephew. When Prophet Muhammad got